Ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome to the Women in Biotech Meet the Leaders event. My name is Charlotte Van Velthoven. I'm a moderator within my own company, Charlie Speaks, and it is a great pleasure for me to be moderating this webinar. And ladies and gentlemen, this is the first webinar in a series of webinars, and I'll tell you later a little bit more about that. But of course, right now, we are going to focus on this event. And this event is kindly organized by the Lithuanian Biotechnology Association, and it has some sponsors and partners that I would like to spell out to you as well. And those are Enterprise Lithuania, the Lithuanian Agency for Science, Innovation and Technology, the US Embassy in Lithuania, Vilnius University of Life Sciences Center, and finally, Thermo Fisher Scientific. But before we start, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to run you through a couple of practical details as well. But first of all, this event will be recorded and archived in the event website. So if you're interested, of course, you can reflect on this webinar once or twice again. And also, of course, we think it's very important, also given the wonderful lineup of speakers, that you as an audience can also ask questions and give your input. And the way we are going to do that is via the tool Vevox. So if you can see it rightly, in the screen you'll find a QR code, and you can join at vevox.app, which stands for app. And there we would like to ask you to post any questions that you might have, and we'll take those questions on board. On top of that, we will also run a polling system, which means that during the event, there will be some times that I'll ask you to actually access the Vevox app again, and then we're going to ask you some questions, and we'll bring those answers from your side again back in the event. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's get started. So why are we here this afternoon? Well, Women in Biotech really is a unique platform because it's the first, foremost, and only platform in Lithuania encouraging women leadership in the biotechnology and life sciences sector. This year's theme is about true stories, true leaders. And as said before, we are going to have 4 events with 4 leaders from the biotechnology sector in the United States. And also we will include some hotshots from the Lithuanian biotechnology sector. So if after today, ladies and gentlemen, you haven't had enough, you're more than welcome to see this event again or join us for the other 3 events that will take place on the 6th, on the 13th, and on the 20th of October. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think I have done enough of the talking, and it is my great pleasure to introduce for the opening speech Robert Gilchrist, who is the ambassador of the United States of America to Lithuania. Mr. Gilchrist, the floor is yours.
It's a delight to be here, and I'd like to thank all of the participants. Of course, we all had hoped that we would be able to see each other in person, but all of us, I think, have grown used to having meetings and really integrating technology more into our daily work in this way. And so the second best thing to seeing you all in person is to be able to participate in this fantastic event online. I've been ambassador in Vilnius now for, I guess, 8 months, and biotech really has been one of the sectors that we focused on in the embassy, and that's because this is an ideal environment for us to operate, and there's so many American firms that are interested in developments here, that have invested here, and that continue to look for potential in this environment. And in 2019, for example, Lithuania's biotechnology sector had an annual growth rate of 25%, which was the highest in the EU. And it also had the fastest growing biotechnology sector in the world in 2018, according to Scientific American. Lithuania exports about 80% of its bioproducts to more than 100 countries, with the United States, the UK, Israel, Japan, and Germany among the primary markets. Academic institutions, professional associations, tech parks, and business incubators in Lithuania have all created really what I know a lot of American firms see as favorable conditions. for the development of biotechnology as a science and the promotion of innovation, R&D, and technology transfer. This event today has an ambitious goal to connect all the stakeholders and inspire women, in particular, to take initiative and leadership in applying their ideas and turning them into innovations and practical solutions. So it's something I know that my embassy has spent a lot of time planning and preparing for, and so we're very, very happy that it's coming to fruition today. The event today is also to really underscore the importance of women's participation and leadership in STEM-related fields and biotechnology in particular for the purpose of this event. And again, we think that Lithuania really is an excellent environment for that. Women actually make up 57% of scientists and engineers in Lithuania, which is the highest figure in the EU. Women form the majority of scientists and engineers in only 3 EU member states. That's Bulgaria, Latvia, Denmark. This event inspires or aims to inspire and promote entrepreneurship, innovation, and much more among these scientists. And I'd like to reiterate our commitment to enhance Lithuania's leadership in the fields of science and technology, to assist in connecting science and industry, and to promote innovation and technology transfer. We've done this at my embassy through a science and technology agreement, which was signed in 2018 between the United States and Lithuania at our third bilateral S&T agreement, and that's an indicator of our mutual commitment to science and technology cooperation. We also do that at my embassy through a NASA internship program, and in 2014. MITA and NASA signed a bilateral cooperation agreement which provides opportunities for Lithuanian students to participate in NASA internship programs. And we also do this at our embassy through the Globe Science Education Program. And more than 30 Lithuanian schools participate in this program. And it's a science and education program sponsored by NASA and supported by the US Department of Education, the State Department, and the National Science Foundation, and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. So this is really an international program that has a strong commitment from the US government. There could be no better time to hold this event. Biotechnology has now taken a front and center role in a COVID-19 world, and ultimately in finding the solutions that will help us get through this pandemic. We look forward to further cooperation with the Lithuanian Biotechnology Association, the Agency for Science, Innovation and Technology, and Enterprise Lithuania in realizing our mutual goals and aspirations. So thank you very much to the organizers, to the supporters, and to all the participants who are online for this event today. As I said, we're very excited about it, and we look forward to seeing how the afternoon evolves. So thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much, Ambassador Gilchrist, for your very kind opening words, and also spelling out the vast amount of collaborations that you already have with Lithuania, that there's a lot of opportunity also for women participation and leadership, and also lovely that you spelled, when you look at the numbers on the biotech sector in Lithuania, that they are truly, truly impressive. So thank you so much for joining us. We hope you'll stay on. Then it's my great pleasure to move on to the next opening, and that will be done by Tomas Andrejauskas from the Lithuanian Biotechnology Association. The floor is yours.
Hi everyone, my name is Tomas Andrejauskas and I'm president of Lithuanian Biotechnology Association. The association unites almost 100 academic, corporate and private members that play the most important roles in Lithuanian biotech and life sciences sectors. Our sector represents roughly 1.5% of Lithuanian gross domestic product, and we have an ambitious goal to reach 5% of GDP by 2030. And we have an excellent plan how we're going to do it. And I tell you what, this event today is part of this plan. Lithuania have a very strong academic background in biotech. 7 Lithuanian universities offer study programs in biotechnology and related subjects. Each year, our academy provides 400 graduates and postgraduates to the biotech industry. And these talented young people are the essential building blocks of our industry future, and we wish to support and empower them to create new technologies, innovate, and commercialize their brilliant ideas. Women in Biotech concept emerged in the heads of such talented women that co-chair with me the board of Lithuanian Biotech Association, namely Agne, Monica, and Inga. Thanks to them for creating and making this concept to go alive. It is not a problem to attract women to biotech sector, no. Statistics tell us that over 50% of employees in the industry are women, but we want to see more leadership from women when it comes to taking the senior management roles in the industry and commercializing new technologies and startups. Here, the statistics is quite different. So today, I'm very happy and excited to announce the first Women in Biotech online event. This year, we'll have 4 of them, focusing on real stories and real leaders. We hope to expand this platform and, after COVID threat fades away, to make a physical conference maybe after a year or so. And let me express a huge thanks to our partners that enabled Women in Biotech events to happen. US Embassy in Lithuania, Enterprise Lithuania, MITA, Agency for Science, Innovation and Technology, Vilnius University Life Sciences Center, and Thermo Fisher Scientifics. I wish you all a great event that hopefully will inspire you to execute your ideas. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your kind words as well, Mr. Andrejauskas. Very promising and ambitious plans, which of course we all like, and especially to hear that this Women in Biotech series is part of your ambitious plans. So ladies and gentlemen, now we are going to move over to the female leaders, and we are going to be inspired. And it is my great pleasure to introduce to you the first female leader in this series of events, and that is Amy Butler. Amy is the president of the Biosciences Division at Thermo Fisher Scientific, and she will tell us more about her career, her struggles, her success stories in one of the biggest biotechnology corporations in the world. Dear Amy, I'd like to give the floor to you.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction. And I am very pleased to be here with all of you this afternoon. And if you would wait just for a moment, I'm going to pull up my slides to share and count on all of you to let me know if you can see them. All right, let me do this. And Charlotte, may I ask you if you can see the slides all right this morning?
Yes, we can see the slides. Thank you.
Excellent. So as I said, thank you again for the invitation to talk to you this morning. I'm going to make a few remarks about my own career journey this morning and some of my learnings. I will keep it fairly brief because I want to allow a lot of time for questions and discussion. So as I go through, please jot down your questions, and I look forward to answering them during the Q&A session after my talk. So today I'm going to speak on 3 themes in particular. First, you don't need a career map, just a compass. And what I mean by that is, at this point in your career, or at any point in your career, you do not need to have everything mapped out. You just need to know roughly what direction you're heading. Second, whatever you choose to do, the best way to succeed is to do something that's very much aligned with your passions, your motivations, and that leverages what you're really, truly good at. And last, with a life sciences background, the paths open to you are really limitless. And I look forward to sharing some of those ideas with you. So this is where my journey started. It started in a place called Buffalo, New York, which is on the East Coast of the United States. And when I was in school, there were 3 subjects I loved the most: English, biology, and math. And for any of you who might be interested in teaching someday, I will say that I'm very, very grateful to all the fantastic teachers I had during my studies who really inspired me to continue on in my journey. However, when I finished my studies and I was applying to the university, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And one of the teachers I had in my high school said, well, you're good at math and you're good at science. How about becoming an engineer? And I thought that sounded like an interesting career, especially if I could focus on environmental engineering. I always loved biology, and I had this view that if I was an environmental engineer, I'd be outside helping people decide, for example, where to build a bridge without harming the environment. And I thought that sounded really fascinating. And so I started my studies off in engineering. However, after my first year at the university, I had the great opportunity to work at a company that did environmental engineering. And I realized a lot of what I was doing was more chemistry based. I was doing a lot of steel cleanup and asbestos sampling. And I realized I wasn't really passionate about that. And I decided to change my focus to biology. And one area of biology I always loved was marine biology. However, I lived in a place where it was a bit difficult to study marine biology because I didn't live near an ocean. And so after my third year of studies, I had the opportunity to take a course over the summer at a place called the Duke University Marine Lab in North Carolina, right on the ocean. And what I learned during that course, it was a fantastic course, a great experience. But what I learned during that course was I didn't want to be a marine biologist, that I would prefer to do my research inside rather than outside. One of my projects involved looking at the tides, and I got up in the middle of the night in the rain to go out there and study the tides. And I decided I'd rather do my research inside. And at that point, I pivoted to studying neuroscience. And neuroscience, as all of you I'm sure know, is the study of the brain. And that's something I've always been fascinated about. I have always been fascinated by the idea that understanding the brain gives us a view into why we are the way we are, why we behave the way we behave. And so I decided to continue on with my studies by doing my PhD in neuroscience. So I headed to Philadelphia to do my PhD in neuroscience, studying brain development, in particular a part of the brain called the striatum, which is involved in movement control. That's Philadelphia is on the East Coast of the United States. I then went all the way to the other side of the US to San Diego for my postdoctoral fellowship, where I also studied brain development, but this time in the visual cortex. And during this entire time, my ultimate goal was to become a professor. I loved teaching, I loved science. It seemed like a perfect fit. But when it came to filling out my first application to become a professor, I had somewhat of a startling realization, which was I wasn't excited about the idea anymore of becoming a professor. I didn't actually want to become a professor. For the first time, I decided that I loved learning, but I wanted to focus on learning something different. I wanted to learn more about the business side of things. But I had spent almost 10 years studying to become a professor. And so I was at a bit of a crossroads for two reasons. One, I didn't know what else I wanted to do. And two, I didn't know what else I was qualified to do after spending almost 10 years doing research. And so on the positive side, what I learned was that a background in science really opened a lot of doors for me. I considered joining an R&D organization at a biotech company. I considered going to work for a patent law firm, but ultimately, because I had decided that I wanted to learn more about the business side of things, I ended up becoming a consultant. And how I ended up on that journey was a little bit of happenstance. And what I mean by that is I had been visiting a friend in New York City. We were sitting having a coffee and reading the local paper, which is the New York Times. And there was an article in the paper that morning that talked about how management consulting firms were hiring PhD scientists. It mentioned that they were looking for people who are analytical and who could learn quickly. And they had found that hiring PhDs was a good way to bring some additional talent into the firm. The firm had traditionally hired more MBAs. And so I went online, I read about a couple of the companies, including McKinsey, and I decided to apply and ended up joining. Was with McKinsey for a little over 3 years, and the experiences I had were incredibly valuable, influenced how I looked at business, certainly, and how I looked at strategy. And in addition, really helped me understand more in particular about the pharmaceutical sector. I worked a lot with large pharmaceutical companies doing R&D, marketing, and sales strategy. But just as important, I learned more about those companies' cultures, more about the different types of roles that were available at these companies. And that was incredibly valuable. But after a few years of working in consulting, there were a couple things I missed. I missed being closer to the science, and I also missed staying somewhere longer to see the strategies that we developed actually deployed, to be around there, to see those strategies come to life and have impact. And so when I got a call from a company called Invitrogen back on the West Coast, I decided to learn more about the company. And Invitrogen was a biotechnology tools company. That means that it's a company that sells products to those doing scientific research. Invitrogen actually became Life Technologies and later became a part of Thermo Fisher Scientific. I've been with the company now for just over 16 years. And during that time, I've had a lot of opportunity to develop and to grow as a leader. I started off leading various businesses, and then from there, supportive of each other and talented colleagues that I could learn from. I show here a couple of the functional roles that I took on, one as the customer care leader for Life Technologies, another as the marketing leader. I'm now currently back in a general management position, leading our life sciences business, which I feel very fortunate to play a role in. Very specifically, it's called the biosciences business. And if I look back at the experiences I've had, when I was in school, I never could imagine the path that I would take. I never could have mapped it out. I didn't even know that some of these roles existed when I was earlier in my career. And that's why I say it's not important to have a career map. You just need to know what direction you want to go. But how do you know if you're heading in the right direction? Well, let me share my thoughts on that. First, I think it's important that whatever direction you're heading, that you are giving yourself the opportunity to learn new things. It's so important that you take on new challenges because that will create future opportunities for you. Second, as I said earlier, it's really important that you do something you're passionate about. For me, that is connecting to science. It's having the opportunity to continue to learn, and it's about developing people. Earlier in my career, I wanted to teach, and that's evolved into a desire to really help develop people and help them grow their careers. And last, but certainly not least, whatever choices you make for your career, it's important that it works for your entire life. On the right-hand side, you see a picture of me with my family. And I think it's important that we all realize that we can have more in our life than just our career. You can have a career that you love, as well as other things in your personal life. That doesn't mean you don't have to make some choices. It doesn't mean that you don't have to prioritize. And it doesn't mean that you have to find the same balance that everyone else has. You know, your path, your choices are uniquely yours. And that's a part of the excitement of being in this field, is that it does open up so many opportunities. So I've said a couple times that it's important to do something that you're passionate about. And the picture I have on the left here is a picture I took when I was hiking with a friend of mine. It's a picture on the island of Kauai. It's a beautiful hike along the coast. What you can't tell from the picture on the left is that about an hour after I took this picture, it started to rain, and then it started to pour, and a tropical storm was hitting the island. So after this picture, we spent about 4 to 5 hours hiking back in the pouring rain, trying to cross a stream that on the way out had been thin and small and slow moving and had become a giant river by the time we were crossing back. And I put this picture here to remind me to let you know that if you haven't faced some pretty significant challenges in your life or your career yet, they will be coming, but that's okay. We'll all face challenges and we will make it through them. But the easiest way to make it through challenges is to make sure that you're focused on doing something that matters to you, working with great people, and truly understanding yourself, understanding what motivates you, understanding what you're good at. And this morning, I'll just share one recent example of challenges that I've faced, and that's the current situation. This year, when COVID-19 started to have its impact around the globe, it created challenges for everyone, whether that is challenges at home or challenges at work. And all leaders, including myself, were forced to face some significant challenges. How could we try and keep all of our colleagues safe while still ensuring that we could support our customers? So many of our customers have been doing amazing things. They've been out there developing diagnostic assays. They've been developing vaccines. They've been developing therapies. And so we were faced with the challenge of how do we continue to keep our colleagues safe while still enabling our colleagues to come in and support our customers. In some cases, that involved ramping the manufacturing of certain products by greater than 1,000 times. And that took a lot of working together and a lot of hours. And, you know, for a couple months, we were working every day around the clock. And what really kept me going was knowing that we could make a difference, knowing that we could help our customers leverage the power of science to do really amazing things in the world. The other thing that really motivated me through this is knowing that all of our colleagues were counting on us to keep things going, to keep them safe. And last but certainly not least, what kept me going was all my fantastic colleagues, their inspiring examples, and working together to accomplish some pretty amazing things. So my last few slides, I'll just talk a little bit about potential paths. I think historically, people have thought of their career path in a somewhat linear fashion. You may have heard the concept of a career ladder, this idea that you start in your career and you sort of move up the ladder in a very linear way. I don't think many people have that experience. And I love this quote from Sheryl Sandberg that says, "Careers are a jungle gym, not a ladder." Most of us will spend many more parts of our career moving laterally, learning new things rather than just moving up. We'll take on new roles. We might take on new companies. We may even take on new industries altogether. And that is a part of what makes everyone's career journey unique and rich and full of opportunities. And all of you happen to be in a very great place at this point in our history and the evolution of science, because a background in life science opens up so many opportunities for you. Whether you're working in academia, as a scientist, as a teacher, whether you're working for the government or a nonprofit, you could be leading a technical organization, could be leading a nonprofit, or similar to my path, you might go into industry. And there are so many different roles that require a science background, or where a science background is incredibly useful. Or your career path may take you through all three. There are so many opportunities if you're open to trying new things with a background in life sciences. And so I'll just close out here by saying a couple things. First, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit about my journey with you. And two, there really are so many opportunities open to each one of us to take on new challenges. And the only thing that we all need is both to be open-minded and to be there to support each other. That is a part of what science is all about. It's a part of what leadership is all about. And certainly a part of succeeding as a leader, whether you're a woman or a male, is having people around you who support you and give you encouragement and keep you going on some of those darker days. And I'll just stop there because I'm really looking forward to hearing your questions and having the opportunity to have a little bit more of a discussion. So Charlotte, I'll hand it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Amy. And really, this was a truly inspiring presentation and contribution from your side, and quite a journey that you've been onto. Basically saying you have to have your own compass, you need to have a passion, and then you'll be able to make it throughout the work jungle, so to say. So thanks so much for this contribution. Before I'm going to ask you any questions, because we did get some questions also from the audience back home, I'd like to ask people to actually go to their Vevox app to sign in, because we have a question for the poll in there. And we would like to ask you, and that is something that we bring on board later on, Amy, if that's okay with you. So the statement we would like you to comment on is, leadership is defined by results. So we'll come back to that later on. So Amy, once again, wonderful presentation. And the first question I'd like to ask you, which also came from the audience, is how would you describe your leadership style? And especially compared to the leadership style of your male colleagues?
Great question. So it reminds me of a quote that I really like. I believe it's an African proverb, but I don't know that for sure. And it's, if you want to go fast, go alone. And if you want to go far, go together. And I think that's a good description of my leadership style. I'm a very collaborative leader, and I like debate. I like discussion, and I believe that the best answers come from multiple people with various different perspectives coming together. I do know that there are many other styles of leadership, including ones that I would describe as more of command and control, which is more of a top-down leadership style, one where a leader might instead tell their team what to do. I certainly have no issues with making decisions, but I much prefer to get a broader group involved and have much more a collaborative approach to problem solving.
Okay, so more democratic, more focused on some form of consensus as well. Okay.
Exactly. Let's at least discuss the problem and bring all the greatest minds with different perspectives together, and then let's come to a solution.
Okay, thank you for that input. Amy, you started off your presentation with school, the importance of education, but you also said you've been lucky that you've had fantastic teachers. But what would you say to people that really didn't have such great teachers and perhaps didn't really enjoy their education?
Oh, I'm sorry. You know, I've had teachers who are really passionate about what they're doing, and so they've inspired me. If you haven't been fortunate enough to have that earlier in your studies, I would say don't worry, because there is a lot of fantastic, inspiring people that you will come across during the rest of your career journey who will inspire you, I am certain. And I hope that will be very soon if you haven't had that opportunity yet.
Exactly. Thank you for that. Another thing that you mentioned, which I think is very nice, that you focus on your career, but you have a support system at home as well, your family. And it seems to be that your family is super, super important. Is that right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It helps me put everything in perspective. And my family in particular, my husband is of great support to me and my career. And there was an interesting quote in Sheryl Sandberg's Lean In book that said something like, one of the most important decisions a woman will make for her career is whether she decides to get married and who she marries. And I think if your career is important to you, it is important that you partner with someone who is supportive of that.
Okay, thanks for that input. So all women out there, choose the right partner to turn your career into a lasting success. I've got some other questions also from the audience. One of them is, what are the main disadvantages of the academia compared to the biotechnological business sphere?
Since I didn't stay and become a professor, I can only give you my view, which is maybe not fair because I chose to go into industry.
But we're here to listen to your view.
But in academia, there are a lot of advantages, and certainly having the opportunity to work with students, from my perspective, is a great advantage. And I have a lot of respect for the fantastic professors I had the opportunity to work with. For me, moving into industry gave me the opportunity to take on a lot of different types of roles. I liked that. I liked the opportunity every few years to take on a very different type of job. That doesn't mean that if you're a professor, that your role won't evolve over time. You might take on additional responsibility at the university, for example. But for me, industry enabled a lot of diversity of experiences that I really have enjoyed.
Would you ever consider going back to academia?
Earlier,
perhaps after retirement, just for fun.
I still love the idea of teaching someday, and maybe instead of teaching science, I'll have the opportunity to teach something about business or something else. So I'll never say never. You never know.
Okay, good. And you talked already briefly about the type of leader that you are. You're really seeking collaboration. Is that also a part of motivating your colleagues? Because one of the questions I just got, how do you motivate your colleagues? Do they need some kind of motivation, or do they have this intrinsic motivation themselves already?
Well, some people are more intrinsically motivated than others, but motivating people has a lot to do with figuring out what uniquely motivates individuals. So we're just not all motivated by the same thing. Some people are very motivated by the impact of their work. Most of us are. And so probably the most common motivation is believing that the work you're doing is having a positive impact. And for me, that's very much the case. And I commented on how much I believe that science can have a positive impact on the world. And that's why I chose to work in this industry. And that's why I like what I'm doing. And I think a lot of my colleagues currently are at the company because they believe in the power of science to have a positive impact on the world.
Thank you for that. So the societal impact, it's not just a money maker or something like that, just really seeing what you can contribute to the world. And of course, we're quite lucky that we live in a world where more and more we actually care about these kind of things, right? With sustainable development goals. We see it now with COVID-19 for sure, that we all have our role to play. Exactly. Another question that came in, and this is the final question before we actually look at the results of the poll, if that's okay with you. And this is actually such a female-like question, having doubts. Do you ever have, or did you have doubts about the choices that you've made?
Everybody has doubts, absolutely. And that's why I think it's so important to have a support network, whether that's your family, your friends, your colleagues, people that when you're doubting yourself can remind you that no one's perfect and that you need to give yourself a break and that you really are a talented individual with a lot to contribute. I do think everybody feels that way sometimes. And so it's just so important to have that support network. I have certainly made mistakes in my career. We all have. And probably one of the things I learned more recently probably is that we all need to be a little more forgiving for ourselves. We tend to forgive their mistakes sometimes more than we forgive ourselves for our mistakes. And it's just a part of life. And while we should all learn from our mistakes, beating yourself up about them is not really productive.
Okay. Yeah. So be a bit kinder to yourself once in a while. It's not too bad. Okay. So as mentioned, I'd like to turn to the poll results. And the statement was leadership is defined by results. Well, the people online could choose between agree, partly agree, or disagree. And we have 28% for agree, 20% for disagree, and 52% for partly agree. So apparently results do matter on the one end, but on the other end, they don't matter that much. What is your take on that?
Well, I can see why it was a tough question to answer and why there's such varied responses to that question. There are fantastic leaders who at points in their career have not had impact, at points in their career have failed. And I do think a part of growing as a leader is failing on occasion. And so I have seen some pretty fantastic leaders try something and not have impact, and I still would consider them great leaders. So I think ultimately, the goal of a leader is to have positive impact, but that doesn't mean you're going to get it right every time. And a part of being a leader is taking risks. Okay. So that's okay, right? If you hear many great leaders' stories, they'll tell you about those times that they failed. But I believe that was a part of them growing into becoming a great leader. So it's all a part of the journey.
Okay, that's good to know because, and that's also something for your information. In Europe, there's less of an acceptance of failure, of a failure culture than in the United States. So when you fail in the United States, I'm like, yeah, you failed, you learned a lot, let's move on. Whereas that's not always the case in Europe. But you would say, okay, it's not such a bad thing to fail. You'll be able to pick yourself up again, take some messages from that and thrive again.
Absolutely. And look, no one likes to fail, right? It's not a fun experience, but it is when we learn the most. And if you find yourself in a place where it's hard to recover from that failure, then perhaps it's a great opportunity to find yourself in a new surrounding where you can start again fresh and take those learnings with you.
Okay, so well, you are a leader for quite some time. You've been able to have the opportunity within your company over 16 years to develop yourself. Have you ever encountered people that doubted about you or that you experience difficulties with because you are a woman?
Fortunately, generally, no. It's an incredibly supportive environment. And so I have very few examples of leaders that I didn't aspire to be like. That said, I did have one leader who was my boss at the time, who very much believed that to be a very talented leader, you needed to have a command and control type leadership style, which I've already commented is not my style. And we were talking about a time when I was talking to all my colleagues around the globe, and I was talking about what our strategy would be to grow the business. And I was getting their feedback about the unique needs of their countries. And my boss said to me at the time, well, you don't talk to them about this. You tell them what to do. You know, anything else is weak. And so I decided at that point that was a leader I did not want to emulate. And fortunately, had the opportunity to go work for someone else soon after that. But that individual felt that the only way to lead was their way. And I think if you find yourself in that situation, you need to have enough confidence to say, no, I will only be a good leader if I lead my way, the way I can be most effective. And fortunately, there was a lot of great colleagues around me who were very supportive, and it was a minor time in my many years at the company. But I realize others may not have such a positive 16 years.
Yeah, exactly. So what you're basically saying is that in a way, it's been good that you encountered this person, which kind of gave you a wake-up call. This is not the way I want to be. So would you say that leadership only works when you're really genuine, when you're true to yourself and not trying to be someone else?
I believe so. You know, I think it took me a number of years in my career to what I call bring my whole self to work. You know, basically be comfortable in my skin, lead the way I lead. And a part of being able to do that is working at a place where you feel comfortable doing that. And I think there are places I may have worked in the past where I may not have felt able to do that in the way that I currently do. And I think that that's important. We can all find that we can all find a company to work at that we feel supported and where we feel like we can be ourselves.
Exactly. Okay. Thank you for that input. Specific question, Amy, there's lots of questions coming in, which is a very good thing. Are there any important traits specific to the biotechnology sector to assume a leading position in that field? And we're talking about general leadership, but is there something specific where you would say you need to pay attention to that to make it in this sector?
No, I think the leadership skills required to succeed in any role within biotech are very similar to the leadership skills required in any industry.
Okay, very clear on that. Now I'd like to ask you to also reflect a bit on other leaders. Not going to mention any names, but in general, when you look at some companies' leaders, we talked about the impact that you can have as a company. Some leaders might just be focused on making more and more profits, whereas it doesn't benefit the environment, the well-being of people, for example. Looking at political leaders, what are some of the qualities among the leaders that are lacking today, according to you?
I mean, the number one thing a leader needs to do is to care about others. And so when you see leaders who are more focused on themselves, that for me is one of the most fatal flaws in a leader. You know, there's so many examples of fantastic leaders who truly care about others, who truly believe that a part of their role is to care about others, to care about their communities. I do think that there is becoming more focus by many leaders within various industries that they need to play a greater role in trying to have a positive impact on their communities, that they need to play a greater role in environmental issues, that they need to play a greater role in some of the issues that face their communities. And I think that has been a very positive evolution of how we're viewing leadership and how we're viewing the role of a CEO at a company.
Okay, and that's also the reason probably why, for example, corporate social responsibility has become so important, where there's even separate accounting and reporting on that, because also, of course, investors are very much interested to see what they're actually doing on these side of things, because there's so much discussion on when you do not comply with these kind of issues, you're not being rated as a good company to work for or to work with.
Exactly.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay, Amy, I'm going to move to the second statement. So ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to ask you to open up your Vevox app again. And the second statement is as follows. Leadership effectiveness should focus on group performance. I think we discussed it a little bit already, but of course, I'm very happy to get some more input on that for sure. Amy, you started off with the importance of education. You also said, apart from having your passion, making your way through the work jungle, it's super important to keep on learning new things. And I'm wondering, well, did you get any courses in leadership, or did you just follow your guts, your intuitiveness? How does it work out?
So I would say there's probably three ways that I've been learning over the last couple of decades. One is by observing great leaders in action. It's a great way to learn how to lead. Two is by trying things out yourself and occasionally making mistakes along the way and learning from that. But third, to your point, there have been opportunities for me to take leadership courses, some offered as a part of my work at the company, some outside of the company. And those courses usually offer a great time to reflect, to step away from the day-to-day of your job and to think about sort of what matters to you and how to become a better leader. And so I think all three of those learning opportunities can work together.
Okay, lovely. So you would definitely encourage people that if they want to become a leader or have the opportunity to become a leader, to keep on educating themselves to learn a little bit more.
Absolutely.
Okay. So, Amy, looking at, I mean, you work within a company, and of course, a company usually has a vision, a mission, a roadmap, a multi-annual plan. They know exactly where to go. But the interesting thing is sometimes one says, yeah, we have this plan and you just adapt to the plan. But how do you manage to implement your vision and mission in the company so that it becomes part of the bigger plan?
Great question. So Thermo Fisher's mission is to enable our customers to make the world healthier, cleaner, and safer. And as you can tell from my comments, that's something I'm incredibly passionate about. So a part of ensuring that your vision fits with your company's mission is choosing the right company. Choosing one whose mission is something you're very passionate about. And that mission acts as a grounding point. So this year would be the perfect example of a time when the plans we started off with needed to be changed dramatically over the course of the year. But it was relatively easy to know what we needed to do, not easy to execute it, but relatively easy to know what we needed to do because we were grounded in our mission and we were grounded in the values of the company. And so when you need to think about how you change course or how you redirect, if you have a strong mission and strong company values and your own personal grounding, your own personal values, those are the things that you lean on when you're needing to make course corrections to what you're going to do, like this year being a very dramatic example.
I can imagine. Thanks. This is very valuable input also to the people, the audience back home. Amy, I would say we are going to wrap it up for now, but I know you'll be coming back later on in the program as well. Then we'll get the results of the polling too. But for now, thank you so much already for your input. I really appreciate it a lot. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is also my great pleasure to introduce to you two additional speakers so that we can continue the discussion. Of course, we've had a lovely presentation and contribution by Amy, which is a nice contribution from the United States. But of course, this event is also to showcase a couple of hotshots from Lithuania itself. And it is a great pleasure for me to quickly introduce to you the two people that we have on board. The first person that we are going to have on the panel is Rima Balanaskiene, and she is the founder, owner, and CEO of Aconitum. And Aconitum is a leading pharmaceutical company with partners in more than 60 countries. In 2016, Ms. Balanaskiene won the Women's Business Award set up by the Lithuanian Ministry of Economy, and in 2018 became the first Eastern European entrepreneur to join the finale of the Prize for Women Innovators 2018 contest organized by the European Commission. Since 2006, she has been a president of the National Pharmaceutical Industry Association. And above all, ladies and gentlemen, of course, she is also a mother of two children. Moreover, this year, Rina was a finalist in the CPHL Pharma Awards 2020, and those awards are dedicated to some noticeable pharmaceutical companies from all over the world, and she was awarded the title Excellence in Pharma CEO of the Year. So, Rima Balanaskiene, are you there? Could you please unmute? Yes.
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you so much, and it's lovely having you. Before I'm going to continue to ask you some questions, I'm also going to introduce another speaker, and it is also my great pleasure and honor to introduce to you Egle Pavide, who is the Director for Business Development and Marketing at clinical, regulatory, and pharmacovigilance solution provider Biomapas. She has a thorough understanding, is what I understood, of the biotech industry and the main challenges companies are facing during their path from laboratory to patients. And being a pharmacist by training, Egle has continued her studies as a PhD candidate in stem cell research, where she gained in-depth experience in preclinical research and drug development, especially related to advanced therapy medicinal products. It's good to know that as the head of regulatory affairs department right now within Biomapas, she gained valuable knowledge on marketing authorization of medicinal products and medical devices and related regulatory aspects. And of course, as a head, she also manages her own personnel and a lot of complex projects as well. So Egle Pavide, are you online too?
Yes, I'm here. Pleasure to meet you.
Yes, great. And it's really wonderful that both of you could join. To continue the discussion, I'd like to ask first Rima and then Egle, just to give a small introduction to yourself. I already gave an introduction, but just tell us a little bit about how did you end up in the career that you are in? Rima, may I ask you to answer?
Hello, good day for all.
Thank you for the opportunity to attend this conference. I agree with you that women are very important in all areas of life. Clearly, very important in biotechnology as well. My company, Aconitum, is collaborating with international scientists and starting new projects in the field of biomedicine. My daughter Vitaute is here. The head of our company's business development department will tell you more about this. Thanks. Please, Vitaute.
Thank you. So it is also an honor for me to join this conference today and speak together with Rima. We're working also as a duet in business life as well, and also supporting her in her new projects. So a lot was already said about the company and who we are. I would just like to mention that we manufacture and develop medicines and food supplements, and today we're exporting to more than 60 countries of the world. And as you know, Rima is the CEO and as well as the founder, one of the founders of the company. To answer the question of, and maybe tell a little bit more of how Rima ended up in this field, I could sum up for her, since I know the bio quite well. So the path was really, so to say, windy and long. Rima is a medical doctor herself, so she studied medicine and she graduated as an ophthalmologist. However, her life and her career took a different path and unexpected one. She turned to be a TV broadcaster for a health TV show. So she never left, so to say, healthcare, medicine. Her passion was always with this, but she didn't have to be a practitioner, a clinical doctor. So her career in TV then led her into different fields, and then in 1999 she ended up together with partners founding a pharmaceutical company, which we're talking about today, so Aconitum. And now she's leading this company into a new era of, so to say, biomedicine. And this is especially in response to COVID. She has been active and innovative in this response, and this helped, speed up the launch of some projects. And now, as a company, we're working on something completely innovative, which is a filtration biomaterial, which we hope will change absolutely of what we know and what we understand about the effectiveness of personal protection equipment against viruses. So this is some new and promising project that Rima is most passionate about today.
Okay, thank you so much for this kind introduction. And I think it's really nice because it appeals also to the story of Amy, that as long as you're passionate, you can end up everywhere. And it's been quite a windy and long road for sure to go from a career into TV to setting up your own biosciences company. So thank you so much for your introduction. And you're Rima's daughter, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you some questions later on as well, because I'm sure your mom is quite a role model to you. But before that, I'd like to move over to Egle. Same question for you. How did you end up in your career?
Yeah, so as you already mentioned, I after my studies as a pharmacist, I decided, to continue my career in academia. So similarly, a bit as Amy did, and then I was quite active in preclinical research with my PhD, with nephrotoxicity studies and stem cell studies. And I was teaching as well pharmacology, which I do a bit right now as well. But later on, I understood, that I need a more vibrant environment. So I joined Biomappus, which is a CRO, basically providing services to pharma and biotech companies. So I'm basically constantly in contact with leaders from biotech industry, helping them with their development, of innovative solutions. So it's a very interesting role I am with, because we are currently in several very interesting projects with our clients, which is, for example, advanced therapy medicinal products for oncology patients, and you get to meet all those leaders, both women and men, who are involved in those developments. So yeah, I'm really excited in my current role and the opportunities I have, in the biotech industry.
Okay, thank you so much for your input on that. It's really much appreciated. And indeed, the career path is a little bit the same as Amy just illustrated as well. Amy, I'd like you to join the floor as well, so that we can have a bit of an open discussion with each other. I'd like to ask, perhaps, Egle, so what are some of the difficulties for you reaching the top? And you're still very young, so there's much more top to be reached, I'm sure of that. But so far, what are the difficulties that you've encountered?
For me, is similarly as for Amy, it's always about the team. You cannot reach, what you want alone. It was the same in my PhD studies. You have to have a team in place in your lab. It's similar for the team in the company that you are working with. So basically, as it says, the team is as weak as the weakest member of the team. So you always need, I'm also leading some people within business development department. So it's also always, taking care of those weakest points in your team and encouraging them to move forward, and also keeping this team spirit. So for me to grow as a leader, to grow in my career, it's always about having those people who surround me and making sure that it's the right set of people.
Okay, so those people can really enable you and motivate you to go any further and to grow, for sure. And I think that's something that Amy said as well, right? I mean, colleagues can really inspire you, motivate you to also overcome the barriers that you might encounter. Same question for Rima. Team spirit, team effort, is that what it's about? It's not just a journey by yourself, it's something you wanted to do together with your colleagues?
Yeah, so Rima gave me the opportunity and the chance to comment on her behalf. So, of course, the team spirit is key. It is very important, and we're very happy to say that in our company, some of the people are still working from the beginning. So we're from the foundation of the company. There are some people who, of course, are new, but we have a very good core team, and Rima has for each so to say function, for each department, a strong leader, a strong head of the section, and they help her develop further and help the company grow.
Okay, thanks for that input. Ladies and gentlemen, that kind of confirms as well what the results are of the poll, because the statement I just posted in the Vevox concerned leadership effectiveness should focus on group performance, and over 60% agreed with that. So indeed, you can be a great leader, but of course you need to find some kind of collaboration in order to really pursue the objectives and the goals that you have in mind. So next question, because I know online we have a lot of people, different generations, but also a lot of young students, young scientists that are joining us today. And of course, your companies are hiring new people as well. So what are the most important traits that you are looking for when hiring a new employee? And Amy, if you're still there, may I ask you to comment on that question first? Let me see if Amy is still there. And if not, I'll come back to her later on. So perhaps Egle, could you tell what are the most important traits that you're looking for when hiring a new employee?
Yeah, I think Rima will also agree on me when I will tell that, for us to find people in Lithuania who would be very experienced in the industry, getting higher and higher. Either we hire them or they migrate elsewhere. So basically, we are taking, in majority of cases, if we are hiring in Lithuania, we are taking university students who just graduated from their studies. So in such case, we are doing the on-the-job training for them because we cannot, find those professionals in the industry. So in such cases, the key objective for us is to look in the personality of a person, willingness to learn and all those personal qualities. Because, again, if we cannot find a specialist who already gained some experience in the field, his personality will be the main aspect that we would be choosing on, Of course, English language is a must, all communication, and we have a lot of colleagues now abroad. So this is also one of the aspects that we would be looking at. But yeah, for the rest, if it would be straight from university, we would also look if the person was active, for example, in scientific organizations or in other social organizations, because it's also show some important aspects of a person himself. So that would be the main aspects that would, differentiate that star from the others.
Okay, thanks for sharing that, because it's good to know that basically you kind of expect when those freshmen are coming from the universities that the hard skills are actually there, because that's why they have been awarded with a diploma, of course. But it's really to see if their personality fits the company spirit and the people that you're looking for in the company. So thanks for that. Rima, what is your take on that? What are you looking for when hiring a new employee?
Yes, please.
Thank you. So I will comment on that as well. So thanks to Agli a lot, because we really feel a lot of the same things, and on the job training is also what we do a lot, and what we are what we have to do, and this is just the situation in the market. And of course, in that case, we do look in the personality, and what Rima summarizes and what she puts the most emphasis on is initiative. So the person has to have initiative. He cannot be like apathic or so to say passive. Reliability, together maybe loyalty to the company, so that the person should actually care for his company, so join it full-heartedly as a team, have full responsibility for what he's doing, and most importantly, have dreams, crazy dreams, because in order to have something innovative, some innovative idea, you need to have this quality to dream. And if you say something and everybody says already that it's a good idea, yeah, we think the same. So probably it's not a good idea. Probably it's something that everyone already knows. So good ideas are those that everyone thinks in the first place that they're nonsense or they're crazy. So yeah, we're this kind of company that that appreciates people who have dreams.
Okay, so people with...
Charlotte, if I could add on this,
Yes, please, do.
the saying that I hate most, among all the people, when they say, we always did so. So this one, which could kill
Yeah.
either in the interview or somewhere else, but
Yeah.
we always did so saying is the worst, that you can get in the company. So if you have a person like this, you should think carefully about him or her.
I understand the point you're making, because of course, as a company, you wish to keep on innovating. And if people want to stay with the way things we used to do it, there's not going to be a lot of change indeed. Amy, I think you're back online, so lovely to have you again. We were talking about basically the traits that you're looking for in hiring a new employee. And what Egle and Rima actually mentioned, they would like to have someone, of course, with the right skills, but they're really looking for a certain personality that fits into the team, someone who can take initiative, someone who has dreams, wicked ideas. What is your take on that?
Well, I agree with everything that's been said. I think one of the most important things that I'm at least looking for is the right attitude and the cultural fit. Besides that, obviously, depending on the role, there's certain skills that you're looking for, but really first and foremost, it is that right attitude, that passion, and that cultural fit.
Okay, thank you for that. Then before I turn to the next question, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask you to open up your Vevox app once again for the final statement that I would like to present to you. And the statement is, one is born a leader and cannot be taught to become a leader. So let's see what your views are on this. Next question that I'd like to pose is, of course, we talk about leadership, but perhaps not all women want to be a leader. They're quite happy with the way things are, and that should be okay in principle as well. But how can you really encourage female leadership? What are the best ways to do that? Do we have to start with education? Do you need to find more platforms to present yourself in platforms like we're doing today, for example? So Amy, could you tell me what's your view on that?
I've met so many incredibly talented female leaders. I don't think female leaders need any motivation. I think that motivation is there. There's a lot of fantastic female leaders. I do think support, being there for each other, enabling each other to have that visibility. I think that often I've met female leaders who don't feel as comfortable talking about their accomplishments, and part of what we can all do is to highlight those great accomplishments of our fellow female leaders. But there's so many great examples out there. I think it's just important that we continue to support each other. And I'll hand it over to my other esteemed panelists to add.
Thanks for your input. Egle.
Yeah, so, I just would like to second Amy that this support, even, I would say most importantly between women, for example, in the company, it's very important that, higher position leaders support I would say lower or more junior position leaders, and that's very important, because what I see actually in men, they always tend to support each other, and I would say that we need that more among women, and then we need to share our experience, to support each other even more, I would say. So that would be really a key point, and I'm happy, 2 of 3 of our operational departments are led by women, and I can see how they are, leading their teams by their example. So that's definitely a very important thing to do.
Okay, so sometimes women need to be a little bit kinder to themselves, among themselves, and we could learn from men a bit more in that section.
For sure.
Okay, Rima, can I ask you to answer that question as well?
Of course. So Rima says, and actually I completely agree, that women are leaders by biology. I mean, we are born to be leaders because we're born to be mothers, and in family, we're just inevitably we're leaders to our children, because a leader is dedicated to, you know, the ones who see him as a leader. He has to sacrifice maybe something and to care for their good and love them in the broad sense. So as mothers, we're all doing that for our children, whoever, you know, if we are mothers. So the only thing is that we shouldn't be afraid to transfer this leadership from family life to broader life, to company life maybe, and then just expand our leadership there.
Okay, so just take the natural leadership skills that we already are being offered by being a mom or a member of the family and transfer that more to business life. Okay, another question which we haven't discussed yet. I know you are inspirational leaders to others, but who is an inspiration to you? Can you just mention a name? And it doesn't have to be a well-known person. It can be anyone. Who's an inspiring person to you? Egle.
You know, maybe having in mind that this webinar is called Women in Biotech, my person wouldn't be the right fit. But the first idea that came into my mind would be Winston Churchill, and it's actually due to the fact how stubborn he was and how he believed in his ideas and how things should be managed. And being Aries by horoscope, I have a same quality, you know, of being stubborn and leading the truth to the victory. So yeah, I would say this leader inspires me quite a lot, even if he's not a woman.
Okay, thanks. Rima.
So what I take from Rima is she's unable to name a specific person or somebody from, you know, known or unknown, but what actually inspires her, she says, is mostly when she has a dream and she sees it fulfilled in the reality. So that is the greatest inspiration. And the second fact would be, for her, it is highly important when she sees that her children want to join into her company and also follow, so to say, in the footsteps. So that gives great meaning and inspiration for her.
Okay. Question for you: is your mom a true role model for you? Yeah, it's hard.
Yes.
It's hard to say no now because your mom is actually sitting next to you.
No, but that's inevitable. You know, it's for me. You know, whenever somebody speaks about women being unable to be leaders, or all this encouragement, how we need to empower women, for me is always a question. You know, I never had that in my life. I always had a mother who is very empowering, who is very herself a leader, self-realized, I would say, and it never came to my mind ever that a woman wouldn't able to do that. I never realized like that could not be possible. It just seems so natural and so I don't know.
That's wonderful. It's probably the biggest compliment to your mom as well to make. Yeah.
And the biggest gift for me, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks for this wonderful input. Amy, you talked about so many things, but who is the biggest inspiration to you?
Well, my answer today is very much influenced by recent events, but the person who first came into my mind actually was Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who is one of the justices for the United States, and she recently passed away.
Exactly.
And what I find inspiring about her is two things in particular. One, she really forged a path for so many others in the legal profession, but much more broadly. And she really seems to exemplify someone who believed that the purpose of using her voice was for good, was to help others. And so she's the one I thought of today, very inspiring individual.
Exactly. And she managed to do so in other times. I mean, those were other times that we're living in as today, for sure. Thanks for that as well. So ladies and gentlemen, we've almost come to the end. I just want to have a look at the outcome of the poll. And the statement was basically, one is born a leader and cannot be taught to become a leader. But I think, ladies, given your wonderful contributions, basically 62% disagreed, which is kind of a confirmation of what you're saying. Of course, you can be taught to be a leader. You need to have the right people that support you. You need to have the right education, but above all, of course, your own passion for what you do. So a final question that I would like to ask to you is to really look into your crystal ball, because you talked about your career so far. You talked about inspiring leadership. You talked about the ways to kind of motivate other women to become leaders. But where will you stand in 10 years from now? Egle, can I give you the floor first?
Yeah, it's a very good question. You know, I still think that I'm pretty young in my career and I can learn a lot. So the first thing I'm thinking, in 10 years, I still need to learn a bunch of things. I'm planning to do an MBA. I did a lot of science. I need to do some business now. So that's also a definite. But yeah, I enjoy what I do a lot. I think I won't be changing an industry. I still be around pharma, biotech, and that's where I want to be. That's a definite. Of course, I want to make further steps in my career, and I have a 10-year plan, which might be a bit of a secret. But for sure, for me, the most important for the next 10 years is learning, and learning not only, you know, what I mentioned about business, but also learning from my colleagues, learning to be better leader, learning to be better line manager for the colleagues that reports to me, you know, also being a better business development person. So that's how I see it, 10 years of learning.
Well, you're an explosion of ambition, I would say. So thanks for that.
My
Rima.
CEO would definitely agree with you.
Very good. Rima.
So from Rima, 10 years from now, her business is transferred, so to say, to her children who are leading it and, you know, growing the company further. And Rima is still actively working, dedicating her time fully to those innovative, sometimes crazy ideas. What is very interesting, what she's very passionate about. So giving even more time to that, what she really wants to do. And her pleasure is actually always doing the impossible. So if everyone tells that's impossible, so that's what she wants to do always. So she'll be doing more of that.
Lovely to hear. Thanks. Finally, Amy.
So I love Egla's and Rima's answers, and building on those. In 10 years, I'm not sure exactly where I will be in 10 years, but I hope I will have 10 more years of learning and growing, and that whatever I'm doing, I'm still having a positive impact on the world around me. And it's hard to imagine that science won't be a part of that.
Okay, thanks so much for all those inputs. And I think I'm suggesting to have this webinar again in 10 years time, or by then finally a physical event again, so that we can discuss what actually became of all the plans that you have in mind. Rima, but also Rima's daughter, Egle, and Amy, thanks so much for your input. Really much appreciated. I wish you the best of luck in your future careers and also in your personal life. And given those COVID-19 times, please stay safe and stay healthy. Ladies and gentlemen, online, I hope you've really enjoyed this first part of a broader webinar series. And we also would like to encourage you to tune on with us online on the 6th of October, which is a week from now, where the focus of the event is Women in Biotech Making a Change, about inspiring stories, for example, about health equality for women. So, dear audience, finally also a big thank you, I would say, to the organization for pulling this off. It was wonderful collaborating with you. Well, have a great evening. I hope to stay in touch. Again, also for you, stay safe and stay healthy. And we might see each other another time. Thank you so much.